Thank you all.
Thank you. Who's the next speaker?
That concludes comment on item 4. We're going to move on to comments on item 6. I believe we have one speaker on teleconference, Joey DeFrancesco.
Hi, my name is Joey DeFrancesco. I'm on the steering committee of the United Musicians and Allied Workers, or UMA, and I'm a touring musician who has played South by Southwest on many occasions. UMA has many musicians there tonight who are going to speak further on the resolution, who have supported and participated in our efforts. I also want to briefly call in on behalf of my organization's leadership to express support for the Fair Pay South by Southwest resolution. We built a broad coalition of labor and musician groups who are also in support. Our coalition sent a letter to the board members earlier this month on behalf of us, United Musicians and Allied Workers, Austin, Texas Musicians, National Working Families Party, Texas Working Families Party, ASM Local 433 Executive Board and Festival Committee, the National Writers Union, Independent Gigging Musicians and ASM Organizing Initiative, Music Workers Alliance, Secretly Group Union, OPEI, U Local 174, and Bandcamp United Local 1010. We want to all thank board members Villalobos and Flowers for introducing this resolution, and to all the board members for considering listening to music workers tonight. I'm also sending support on behalf of the nearly 3,000 artists who have signed on to UMA and our coalition's demands for higher pay from South by Southwest, including hundreds of musicians from Austin, more from across Texas, and from around the country. Like me, these are largely musicians who have played the festival and who deeply enjoyed coming to Austin performing, but who are deeply frustrated by the continued insultingly low pay. My own band first performed at South by Southwest in 2015, and it was financially difficult to make it work at that point, even though we had extensive national press, a record deal with a well-known label, and lots of support. Now, 7 years later, with wages exactly the same, given rising costs and touring, it would have been impossible for us to make it work financially in 2023. And that's what this low pay does, right? It excludes working class artists, disproportionately excludes artists of color, disproportionately excludes queer and trans artists. The festival often defends itself, saying that playing is a matter of exposure. But for us, why should only a privileged few be able to get that exposure? Why should working class artists who do make it work suffer a needlessly high burden, particularly when this festival has such deep pockets, when it's 50% owned by the billionaire Penske's, when the festival continue expanding and opening a new festival in Sydney, Australia later this year. It's clear they can pay the musicians who make the festival fairly. So just to close on behalf of UMA's 3,000 artists who have signed on to our demands and our Fair Pay at South by Southwest Coalition, we want to urge the board to vote yes on tonight's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is going to be Michael Wellen, followed by Jeannie Ramirez. Michael Wellen.
Hello, Michael Whalen on behalf of South by Southwest. I'm here with Michelle Flores, the Chief Logistics Officer who oversees all production for the entire event. South by Southwest has long been an industry event and showcasing opportunity for both up-and-coming and established artists to find new audiences and explore new business growth. South by Southwest is proud of the community and environment that it establishes for musicians and industry representatives to mix and learn from one another. Each year, South by Southwest receives over 7,000 applications to participate from musicians, and last year, approximately 1,500 bands were selected to participate. Although no one has to attend South by Southwest or participate in the voluntary application process, the opportunity is there for those who want to be a part of the event. Please keep in mind that South by Southwest's purpose is to help creative people achieve their goals. As an industry event, the focus is on career development. Showcasing at South by Southwest provides indispensable networking, mentoring, and professional opportunities that consumer-focused festivals like Lollapalooza do not offer. Developing acts attend South by Southwest and intend to use it as a springboard to help them get to the next level of their career. Established acts participate in order to take advantage of the global music industry and media presence who are in attendance, typically to promote a new project or album. The overwhelming majority of musicians who participate, approximately 90%, select the artist registration package, which consists of an artist credential for each performing member of a group. For 2024, South by Southwest is expanding the access of the artist credential to include all the benefits of a music badge, valued at approximately $995, plus artist-only benefits such as one-on-one mentor sessions, more of which are being added. This credential is not sold and is only for official performers. Alternatively, acts can opt for a payment of $350. Solo artists can opt for $150. This option is meant for acts who are passing through town and are not in Austin long enough to take advantage of the career opportunities. The typical showcase performance is 40 minutes in length. South by Southwest is also working with Health Alliance for Austin Musicians, HAM, to provide showcase applications to HAM members at no charge. Over 20% of the bands that are showcased at South by Southwest are from the Central Texas region. I want to conclude by thanking all of the stakeholders who provided feedback during and after the 2023 festival. We hope that the additions to the 2024 Artist Credential will expand further musicians' opportunities for career enhancement. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Whalen, we have a board member who has a question.
I have a question. Thank you, Mr. Whalen. Can you explain the benefits, again, to the musicians for receiving the badge?
Sure. Previously, the credential had them with the general group. It now will be a full music badge, gives them access to all the events that,
I guess what I'm getting at is how does that help the career of the musician?
Oh, right. So in addition to getting access to hear other bands and maybe get new ideas, in addition, they have the mentor one-on-one sessions with industry representatives. They have also added events. There's an artist lounge. You can meet other artists, get other ideas. I mean, we're trying to create a milieu, a community during the festival so that artists can, really make a decision. Is my career, am I doing the right thing, or do I need to go back to medical school, or whatever it is? I mean, I think the opportunity here is to give artists and musicians the opportunity to participate in this milieu, in this community, and get feedback. The other thing is, obviously, we have the mentoring opportunities. They do have an artist village and artist lounge for meals, drinks. Again, an opportunity to socialize with other industry folks and artists, all part of the effort here.
Thank you.
Oh,
I have a question. Can you comment on the rationale behind the $350 for a band, $150 for a solo artist? How did you come to that number?
They basically took feedback from some industry analysis that they did independently to figure out what made sense on a 40-minute show and what artists were being paid.
Who's they?
South by Southwest.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, it's just from the feedback, and also I think one thing that's been healthy is I think there'll be some mindfulness to be sure that we're actively seeking, as they do every year with surveys to all participants of South by, but continue to receive and seek out feedback.
Okay. The industry studies, where did those come from, or you don't know?
Yes, I do. 1 second. I'll go back and get it and come back up.
And the band, it's like if it's an act to 2 people or 10 people, they still get $350.
Correct. That's right. Remember, 90% of them take the artist credential. I mean, they're coming here, to participate in that community of, possible career opportunity.
any other questions? Thank you.
Jeannie Ramirez again. Wow. That was really hard to take in. South by Southwest is the greediest music festival of all time. They really are. Mr. Whelan is so out of touch. It's just hard to sit here and hear him say all the things he said. It's insulting. I have a question. This Parks Board here, have you had any meetings with the Penske Group? And if so, I want for public transparency to know when those meetings were and who attended. And if you have not had a meeting, I want to know why. This was big news in March. I think y'all think that the musicians are going to let this go. This is nuts. There's a lot of musicians that didn't even know about this meeting. I didn't know until I read the Monitor, and I don't always read the Monitor. I'm concerned. I'm concerned about this board even being eligible to make this decision. I don't know if any of y'all have music backgrounds. You understand, have you talked to musicians? Have you gone to a music commission meeting? Have you talked to musicians? Why is it that people get hired for these boards all across Austin and yet no communication? None. You could have an open house where you actually talk to musicians. It's not that hard. I don't understand. Mr. Whelan, so out of touch. It's scary. I cannot believe him. Go back to college? I mean, are you serious? I have a PhD in music. After all the years, 37 years doing this, and I'm damn good at what I do. If you hear this voice as loud as it is, imagine when I sing rock and roll, baby. It's ferocious. So I'm going to tell you right now, please have respect for all of us here that are speaking out. You heard what he had to say. Justified the 350 and the 150. Oh, and they're expanding to Australia. All the 7,000 people he just said apply and only 1,500 get in. All that money, all those fees are going to executives. They're pocketing it. They're I don't even own a car. I'm going to get emotional here. I don't understand. I don't understand this. I came here on the bus, sweated my ass out there, to be heard. I think we want to be heard. I don't understand any of this non-empathy, disconnect with Mr. Whelan. I don't get it. It makes me so sad for the music industry here. I grew up, I got to see Stevie Ray Vaughan perform live at Auditorium Shores for free in the late 70s and early 80s. And we come from that to this. It's sad.
Good afternoon. Good evening. I thank you all so much for taking the time to have this as part of your agenda. I greatly appreciate it. My name is Scott Strickland. I'm a music commissioner with the City of Austin, and I'm also a full-time musician that plays gigs every single week, pretty much 3-4 times a day. In a week in this city. So, in April of 2022, the Music Commission passed a resolution to up the pay for musicians, the city rate, from $150 an hour to $200 an hour. That was to help offset the rising cost of inflation, the excruciating cost of housing that musicians have experienced in this city, in terms of everyone experiencing in the city. Just a couple of days ago, and I'm keeping it very recent here, KUT posted an article about how someone working part-time in this city, full-time job in the city, minimum wage, needed to work 147 hours in order to afford a one-bedroom apartment in Austin. I think it's needless to say that $150 to $350 for a solo act or for a band act to perform at South by Southwest is just not going, it doesn't cut it. I can tell you firsthand that it will not do it. As a touring musician, as a full-time artist, as a critically acclaimed artist, I can tell you that What Mr. Whelan is speaking on is just false. It's just false. And we need, it's not about the opportunity. The opportunity to pay, the opportunity should not be to get a spotlight. The opportunity should not be to get some kind of notoriety or whatever. The opportunity should be putting food on your table. The opportunity should be to go home after a gig and you getting like food and gifts for your family and for your friends. The opportunity should be having a livable, sustainable wage. And so it is my recommendation as a commissioner, I am asking that you pass a council committee agenda request that disallows South by Southwest any permitting at all whatsoever unless they can agree to pay a full $200 an hour per musician in this city, or somewhere at least close to that. They don't deserve to make money off of us and exploit us and just go home and we are left holding the bag. Thank you so much.
Hello. My name is Sadie Wolf, and I'm so proud to be here. I am a cellist from Austin, and I'm also a member of the Austin Federation of Musicians, Local 433. And I am here today because I believe South by Southwest takes more than it gives. I have performed as an official artist at the festival 4 times, most recently in 2019 with my band Batty Jr. And I have not applied for this festival since then, as I felt mistreated and neglected during that experience. After hearing Mr. Whelan's new addition to what we'll be getting, the increase of pay by $100 and also getting a wristband on top of that, my statement has changed a little bit. But what I wrote earlier is that I don't need another JanSport backpack, which is what a lot of people get if you're an artist. You forego the money to have the experience, and you walk away with a backpack. And that's cool. That was cool for me when I was 18. I'm 30 now. And it's just, that's not going to pay my bills. What I need is payment. What I need is money at prevailing scale wages. And I shouldn't have had to choose between a wristband or payment. I am a real human who has bills to pay and a life to lead. And I feel like South by Southwest has cast me aside as a dispensable laborer, a nobody, but I'm not. I am a musician, and we are the lifeblood of this music festival, and our demands should be taken seriously. I am also an Austinite and a taxpayer, and I do not support waiving any fees for use of public parks by Southwest until they agree to pay artists fair wages. I'd like to thank the Parks and Rec Board immensely for bringing this issue to City Hall today. And this is just the first step, and I urge South by Southwest to keep musicians at the table, at the negotiating table, because we are organizing our power as musicians, and we will not back down. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Council. My name is Russell K. Shores, and I am the Sitting Vice President of Local Union 433. As you've already heard, musicians are suffering. They're not looking to be treated special, they're looking to be treated equal. Musicians cannot make it on the wages that South by Southwest pays, and we've let that be known for quite some time now. To think that $300 or $100 is going to do it, that statement is preposterous. It's almost laughable if it didn't hurt so much. What we need is economics that works for all of us. South by Southwest is a huge windfall for the city. And a lot of times musicians are actually paying to play because the admission fee is more than they're going to make. And that by itself is enough for you to say, we can't do that. You yourselves would not like that if that's how it was for you and your jobs. But to think that it's gone on and on and on for so long, and you have people like the last gentleman that spoke that can say things that are just ludicrous. Because he's not leaving home with $100. He doesn't have to move out of Austin just to survive. He doesn't have to have 4 or 5 roommates just to make rent. As the lady said, she's taking the bus to gigs. Try that. See how it works for you. See how many times you get there on time because the transportation isn't reliable. Please do your jobs and help musicians out. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's Jarman with an O. For anybody reading, hey, thank you so much for allowing us to speak on this, and thank you, Chairman Villalobos, for bringing this up. Obviously, I'm in favor, and I guess I just wanted to tell you about my experiences with South by. Well, first of all, I think the 90% of people taking the wristband instead, that's kind of silly because, like, I know I took it because I knew I'd get microphones out of it and I'd be able to sell them to get some more money, you know? So I don't know. That's just kind of silly to me. I also think, you know, it's not like, you know, once you sign up to play, and okay, so they're offering you. You get to have a nice one-on-one with an industry professional. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen that. But if that's a real thing, it's not like it's unpaid for, right? I mean, you pay to be in the festival. You have to pay to be in the festival. And then they consider that like a gift or something, or in exchange for playing? I don't know. That doesn't make sense, does it? Am I crazy? You can answer if you want. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I've played a lot of South Bys. I don't really know if this is true. It feels like a lot of the Austin musicians are kept on retainer. From a lot of the bands that I've talked to, it always seems like it's the very, very, very last minute, like a week before, that they tell you, "Oh, you're on, you're in," and I don't know if that's true. So strike that from the record. But it would make sense. I mean, right? Because people might have to cancel if they're traveling and stuff. But it really messes up my whole week because you have to make sure not to book any other gigs. They don't want you to play any other gigs. So they want you to play your gig at South by, maybe more than a gig at South by. You still just get that same amount of money, but they want you to play that, not play any other gigs. How am I supposed to make a living? I mean, that's what. In a 4-piece band, I can make my $90 for the week. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. And it's such a big festival. I mean, can you believe that? It's such a big festival. I don't know. I just think it's really, really wacky. And so I wanted to tell you that, obviously. Yeah. I'll take questions. Okay, thank you.
All right, next.
Hi, my name is Philip Balke. I'm here as a member of the AFM Local 443, and thank you, Parks Board, for putting this issue on the dais tonight, and thanks, Councilman Villalobos, for all your help supporting us, too. I think basically Mr. Whalen came up here and gave a very wonderful speech that is exactly what I would expect to hear from a boss trying to say, oh, we do everything. And he even did the classic cliches of we're a family, we're building a community and stuff like that. But the bottom line is he wouldn't work. He wouldn't be here tonight for a badge to South by. But he expects every musician who comes there to take that as a gift. In addition to them, each musician, as he said, paying an application fee. What job, any other job, do you pay a fee to apply for it? They have enough money coming in from badges, and because there's multiple levels of badges, he said, we're bumping up the musicians to get a full access badge. They weren't even giving people a full festival ticket back in the day. Now that's a new thing, supposedly, as far as it's not even in writing yet. I think he just brings that today to try and get y'all off South by's back, because that's his job. And it's just really insulting, because at the end of the day, like the other musicians that have testified tonight, we have rent to pay. We can't give our landlord a South by badge and saying, this is what I got paid in. It's absurd. We are doing work, just like he's doing work representing South by, and we need to get paid for doing that work in a way that is a sustainable wage that enables us to pay rent, to put food on our table, to pay our bills. He said go back to school. How many of us musicians, myself included, have student debt? Because the schools in this country aren't paid for in a way that makes sense. And we as individuals are meant to burden that. So he is bringing classic talking points to denigrate us. But really what he's doing is predating upon us. And South by does this too. He's representing predators because they are taking advantage of our love of performing music, something that we couldn't survive without doing, and saying it is a privilege for us to make millions of dollars off of that work that y'all are doing. And really, I don't have anything more to say than that, other than, he's taking South by, and through Waylon tonight, is representing them, is taking advantage of and predating upon people's love of the thing that we all can't live without, which is music. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is going to be.
Good evening, Parks Board. Thank you for having us here today. I am Pat Bukta, CEO of Austin, Texas Musicians Advocacy Nonprofit. We represent 5,000 Central Texas musicians on city, state, and federal policy, which encompasses a number of projects, including the one that we're here talking about today. I do want to say I am grateful to have had a few meetings with South by Southwest leadership and to begin to open lines of communication. In those meetings, I did learn of the new announcement to raise pay to $350 per band and $150 per artist, and to add extra benefits to artist wristbands that Mr. Whalen spoke of. It is a step in the right direction, and I do want to commend South by for starting down this path. But respectfully, is that enough? Our musicians do not think so. And musician input is the one thing that everybody seems to be missing so far in this conversation, until today anyway. Thank you, guys. So I want to be clear that our organization is not a bargaining agent. That's not what we do. We're simply here to educate and empower musicians to advocate for themselves. We're going to leave that negotiation work up to AFM 4033 and UMA, who are great at what they do. What I would like to offer today is to keep lines of communication open between South by Southwest leadership and musicians. Many of those we represent have played South by Southwest numerous times over the years, Mr. Forsyth, and are available for an ongoing community focus group, which is going to be key to any solution. Any agreed upon solution is going to take time, communication, and collaboration, and we are available to make these conversations happen. And we have to make that happen if we want to keep Austin musicians working and thriving and healthy. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Thank you so much for taking this agenda item up. Musicians do a lot for free. We practice for free. We rehearse for free. We have to pay to record. A lot comes out of our own pocket. And it is very unique for that to happen compared to any other industry. Are any of you musicians on the board? No. So you don't know how many hours it takes to just get good enough to be in a band, how many hours it takes to rehearse so that band is good enough just to get a gig, and how many hours it takes on a computer, emailing venue after venue, receiving no response, a no response, just to get that one yes for a venue to take a chance on you and your band. I'm in support of agenda item number 6. I have played South by Southwest as a musician, as a DJ. My first South by, I was a volunteer stage manager. And that's something that we are not talking about, is the amount of volunteers it takes to run this festival that are not paid. As a volunteer stage manager, I was expected to work 4 days of the festival for 8 hours, and that is not including the countless hours I spent emailing and advancing over 20 bands. They do a lot. South by Southwest does a lot. They provide exposure. But that is not something I can take to the bank. It is not something I can pay my bills with. I can't feed my family with exposure. I would die from exposure. All I'm asking is that this major festival pays its musicians, like all the other festivals I've ever played. It's very simple. They have enough money. They get enough money from the application fees, from sponsorships, from waived fees that the city supports. I just want my fellow musicians to get paid to play. The city has used the name Live Music Capital of the World since the 90s and had no agenda to support those musicians that they were benefiting from. When people fly into Austin, what do they see? Music. They know it's a cool place to be because of the musicians and the artists that make it a cool place to be. So this should be a no-brainer for all y'all. Just support the music and musicians that make this town what it is. Thank you.
Our next speaker.
Good evening, Board. My name is Sarah Hall. I'm the Advocacy and Education Director at Austin, Texas Musicians, and I'm here speaking in support of Item 6. I'm a harpist and a self-employed musician who's been living in and playing around Austin for the past 6 years. Not getting compensation for a performance is being taken advantage of. I was able to figure that out at age 16 when I was trying to earn a wage as a musician for the first time. I had been pouring hours into my craft every single day for 10 years at that point, and a free pastry at a locally owned coffee shop in exchange for all that time coming to fruition was a slap in the face. It was obvious to me then, and it's obvious to me now. Instead of a tiny family-owned business, imagine an event that generates hundreds of millions of dollars every year and was built on the backs of Austin musicians for decades. A wristband is not compensation. $95 for a solo artist after the application fee is not compensation. We are workers. This is our job. This is how we live. This is how we survive. We need to be paid fairly for our work, especially when we know South by and Penske Media can afford it. And, Mr. Whalen, mentor sessions, career development, and springboards do not put food on the table or pay rent. And just so you know, 90% of artists take the wristband option because your idea of pay is honestly insulting. How a civilization treats its artistic class says a lot about it. And the current way South by is treating us does not reflect kindly on this city. You all can change that. I urge this board to please vote in support of the proposed recommendation. Thank you for your attention and for considering this item.
Hello. My name is Ann Charlotte Patterson. I'm in District 7. I'm Vice Chair of the Music Commission, but this evening I'm representing myself as a member of the music community. The Music Commission has not had an opportunity to take this up yet. The issue of musician pay is something that we have been discussing for years at this point. Pat and Sadie and Zeke have all come before us. We've talked about this with the city rate of pay for city paid performances, how the Live Music Fund can best benefit artists. And so it is a very thorny issue, and I really appreciate the Parks Board stepping up to help us figure this out. I guess, in the issue of South by Southwest, as a music commissioner, I'm trying to understand how to best separate the idea of direct pay from an overall compensation package. I do understand, this is an incredibly emotional issue. This is, we are dealing with so much scarcity in Austin, and it is, almost hardest on our musicians and our creative workers. So I would say that I support an improved compensation package for musicians and artists at South by Southwest. However, if musicians do choose to take the new package offered by South by South by Southwest, which I have not had an opportunity to study closely. I would hope that that package offers a truly elevated experience for the artists, a true career building experience that justifies the investment of time and energy and money to play at South by Southwest, and really gives these musicians opportunities in rooms and at tables that they haven't had access before. And that if we're treating them as, if this is being framed as their VIPs at this convention, that they really feel that they have that experience, that it's really, truly worthwhile. And so I know that Pat with ATXM and Sarah are still discussing this with South by Southwest. I know you've, and I'm here in solidarity with you guys, like you probably haven't had a chance to comb through the details yet. So I'm just saying, like, I hope that what South by Southwest is offering is great. If you feel like you're not sure, and there needs to be more discussion with South by and with the musician communities, I hope we can continue that. Thank you.
Our next speaker.
Hello, PARCOD members. I'm Nagavali Medicherla. I am an independent musician, been based in Austin for a long time. I currently serve as the chair of the Music Commission, and I also serve as the mayor's appointee to the Arts Commission. However, I stand here today in my capacity as the board chair for EQ Austin, a nonprofit organization which works towards promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in Austin's commercial music landscape. Our board offers 100-plus collective years advocating for Austin musicians, spanning 1974 to 2023. While we acknowledge the efforts of individuals and organizations striving to provide musicians with fair pay, the draft recommendation proposing that South by Southwest must guarantee fair pay for musicians at the City of Austin's parks and other spaces has raised some concerns for us. Fair pay is generally determined by the nature of the event or venue and usually varies depending on the artist or band's experience and draw. The Austin Music Commission passed a recommendation, as was earlier mentioned, last year to raise the per-hour musician pay from $150 to $200 for events produced by the city, which has been adopted by the Economic Development Department, and we hope to see other city departments voluntarily follow suit. However, if the recommendation regarding South by availing of city facilities is to become a government policy, it would have to extend beyond South by to be fairly applied to other entities, both for nonprofits and for both for profits and for small nonprofits, as well as events both established and new. It would also need to be equally applied to city institutions such as the Asian American Cultural Center, Resource Center, the MAC, Carver Museum and Cultural Center. We must consider the potential impact of such a policy across the board. It could create budgets that would make some programs unsustainable. In 1987, South by Southwest was the first producer in the city to include genres like Tejano and hip-hop. This homegrown event has continued to support local BIPOC musicians and ensured their longevity in a biased market, generating new funding resources for musicians. I should note that EQ Austin presented South by Southwest virtual shows in 2021 during the pandemic, featuring BIPOC artists in collaboration with Texas Music Office, Black Fred, and KUTX The Breaks. I just would like to quickly conclude that we appreciate the updates that South by have provided for 2024. There is a lot that South by brings to the Austin economy, including hot taxes that directly go into funding cultural arts, and the new live music fund that has been established for musicians. Thank you so much.
Hello. My name is Jessica Forsyth. I work with the Austin, Texas musicians. South by Southwest was originally founded, I believe, by two gentlemen that really did have a great idea for a festival. And I believe that they really did believe that it was an amazing opportunity for people to come together and possibly be lifted up in opportunities they wouldn't have anywhere else. They are no longer running South by Southwest. The pay is still basically the same that you would have expected in the 90s. It has not changed. Did you know that the taxes that were waived for South by Southwest is the equivalent of paying 234 solo artists? And with the $55 non-refundable application fee required by Southwest, basically means they do not actually lose anything by paying musicians to play their events. I heard Mr. Whalen speak about the benefits of performing at South by Southwest, and I must say, from a musician's standpoint, it is absolutely not an opportunity to advance our careers. South by Southwest is a consumer-driven event. With the lowest ticket prices being over $700 a piece, local musicians cannot afford to even attend this event in their own city, and they are being displaced from their own community. Yes, this is actually one of the biggest reasons musicians are upset, because not only can we not live and work in the own city that we work and live in, we can't work here while South by is here. Do you understand that we're being asked to choose between being paid between $100 and $350 for an entire band, which usually consists of 4 to 5 players, or take a wristband? We aren't going to work for that entire month South by Southwest is going on. And not only are we not going to work for that entire month that South by Southwest is going on, we're not going to work the next month. Because just like there's a low season in January after the holidays, everyone in this city has saved all of their entertainment funds that they would spend going to all of our small shows throughout the city on this festival. You could spend $10 to $20 per ticket and go to hand-to-mouth musicians shows to this city. But instead, South by Southwest is being incredibly greedy, the lowest ticket price being over $700. I don't understand how we're standing beside this at all. I'm tired of living in Austin. Tired of Austin being so comfortable calling themselves the live music capital of the world. We say it all the time. It's on the government pages. It's at the airport when we get there. But we are not actually trying to help musicians that live in this community live a sustainable lifestyle. I have children. And Mr. Whalen, I did go to college. I'm classically trained, and I'm still being asked to please choose between money or $250 for a wristband. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Audrey Campbell, the singer of Pleasure Venom, a punk rock band based here in Austin. We've been active for almost a decade, and I'm speaking in support of the proposed resolution for fair pay at South by, of course. As a Black woman in a predominantly white city playing the genre I do, it has been drilled into my head to insist upon being paid fairly and to be as tight as possible to give no doubt to why we are being paid what we are. So no one can question our guarantees or draw whatever a gatekeeper may try to throw at me. So listen, this being the self-proclaimed live music capital of the world, there are people like myself that will not be satisfied by performative displays such as Black Lives Matter being spray painted down Congress Avenue. I saw the sharing of black squares. It's just time for action, and your underrepresented and underserved communities feel the need for fair pay even more. Every year in March when South by comes around, my band receives numerous free or low show offers. We even had an actual grant program, asked us to play for free in exchange for exposure, I guess, which we declined. This year we participated in UMAW's Fair Pay unofficial South by Southwest showcase. It was a great experience, and we were paid fairly. In contrast, right after the set, my guitarist had to pay a staggering $55 for parking to make it to our actual South by official set on Rainey Street. The $250 per band that was offered is nowhere near our guarantee to divide between ourselves or pay out our manager or crew, so we'll always go with the wristband, and the truth is all artists deserve to be paid in actual money, of course, and fairly. The updated $350 per band or $150 for solo artists is just not it either. Wristbands should not have even been an option for payment either. We have to eat and pay bills, pay for recordings and rehearsal spaces, And yes, we do actually have to all take off during South by as well. Parking and ride shares also skyrocket during South by as well. So UMNW's campaign also shed light on the fact that international artists are offered only wristbands, which I think is also unacceptable. These practices of unpaid and underpaid performances only tarnish the South by's image and credibility. Artists will only get louder about it. To those who defend the status quo and suggest that artists should simply work harder or not complain about South by and fair pay, while I respect differing opinions, no and no. While South by brings in money into our community, it should not be at the expense of musicians. I repeat, it should not be at the expense of musicians living here. So while South by brings, Black and brown artists and queer people like myself are just really fed up. If Austin wants to continue to call itself the live music capital of the world, it's crucial to address and meet the very real concerns of live performing artists. Inclusion, I hope that future artists and my friends will have an easier experience than I did. Also, I would like conversations to continue beyond South by because it only highlights a symptom of a brighter issue within our music community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Guy Forsyth. It's a pleasure to get to speak for you or speak with you, and I appreciate your time, especially as I don't think this is really the right place for this argument. But musicians are having to push back anywhere that they can because it's a very real concern making a living in the music business here in Austin, Texas, right now, and January 10th, 1990, when I first moved to Austin. That very year, I did South by Southwest for the first time as a sideman playing with Steve Alexander. The next year, I performed under my own name with a guy named Artie Gold. We called ourselves the Scalp and the Sledgehammer. Ever since then, or 20 years later, I'm still doing South by Southwest every year. And finally, it's like, this doesn't make sense. It's not that I'm not producing music. It's not that I'm not putting out product. It's not that I'm not touring, because I am touring all over the world. But what is the problem? I suggest to you the problem is the density of entertainment during South by Southwest. With 1,400 bands all coming, there's not a lot of bandwidth for anything else to take place. And it's not a good investment. That's what it occurred to me to do it, because I just wasn't going to make the money back that I would spend paying professional sidemen to get to do this gig. So maybe the money should be a limiting factor in how many acts South by Southwest brings into Austin. Why not increase that amount that it costs, and that would limit the amount that they would spend on bringing acts in, and those acts would be able to make a living. I love the park system in Austin. Too bad I don't get to live here anymore. I live down in Buda, and so I don't get to see the actual parks that I love so much. It's too bad, because some of my best memories have been in those parks. I wish I got to live in Austin. I still play in Austin, play here full time. I've gotten awards in Austin. I have a pretty big footprint. I've been doing this for a long time. I love what I get to do. It's not medical school, but I think it has value. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you will consider this resolution or this suggestion. Thank you.
The end of those who registered for public comment. Is there any person present that wanted to address the board that didn't already get a chance to speak?
Yes, just briefly. I'm also in the band with Audrey Campbell and for about 10 years. Just one quick point. I didn't really prepare anything. I was here to support her more than anything, but as a musician, I have a lot to say. The idea that you can actually gain opportunities through South by instead of payment is kind of ludicrous at this point when you have the internet that can do all the same things as any sort of sense of community that you can bring people together in the same room. You can do all that online now. All the marketing, connecting with other artists, finding opportunities. South by Southwest really has no purpose in that realm anymore. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. This is a motion that I brought forth. I'm going to read the recommendation at this time since it was not posted. Recommend that the City of Austin Council support fair pay for South by Southwest performing artists, whereas Austinites share a sense of community pride and a determination that the city's vision of making Austin the most livable city in the country is not just a slogan but a reality. Whereas the City of Austin is the live music capital of the world, and live music and music in many other forms is everywhere in Austin. Musicians play everywhere from the airport terminal to grocery stores. They play outdoor at seasonal live music series and at world-famous festivals. Whereas South by Southwest is an annual March event featuring sessions, music, and comedy showcase, film screenings, exhibitions, professional development, and a variety of networking opportunities, and is an essential destination for global professionals. Whereas the City of Austin waives fees associated with Vic Mathias Shores, also known as Auditorium Shores, for use by Southwest, and where such fees amount to $23,430 in 2023. Whereas South by Southwest is also regularly rents out Craig Softball Complex, also known as Craig Field, Waterloo Park, and Brush Square Park. Whereas in 2022, artists were required to pay a non-refundable $55 application fee to South by Southwest to be considered for selection to the festival artist roster. Whereas in 2022, South by Southwest pays domestic artists $100 to $250 or compensates artists with a festival wristband. Whereas compensation by Southwest artists has not changed in over a decade, whereas working artists depend on income from shows and events for their livelihood, whereas it is within the purview of the City of Austin to tackle issues relating to fair pay and to work with dignity, whereas the City of Austin has established a precedent for enforcing living wage compliance with its capital contracting program, which requires all city contracted construction projects to pay their workers at least the prevailing wage for their trade as set by the U.S. Department of Labor or the City of Austin minimum wage as established by city ordinance, whichever is higher, whereas the City of Austin should be concerned about the type and the amount of compensation offered to artists by Southwest, whereas the type and amount of compensation paid to artists by Southwest reflects our city's values and vision due to the city's strong collaboration with South by Southwest and its subsidization of South by Southwest, and whereas South by Southwest uses City of Austin park space for volunteer, ticketed, and community events, often free of charge. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Parks and Recreation Board, 1, recommends the City of Austin Council direct the City Manager, Legal Department, and the Parks and Recreation Department ensure that any contract negotiation between the City of Austin Parks and Recreation Department and South by Southwest includes provisions requiring fair pay for domestic artists pay performing at City of Austin parks, park facilities, and city-owned property. And 2, recommends that the City of Austin Council require changes to artist pay and compensation by Southwest before waiving any future fees at Vic Mathias Shores or at any other park facilities or city-owned facilities. I move to adopt the recommendation as read. Is there a second? Second. There's a second by Board Member Merritt. Now that we move to the discussion of the phase, the recommendation has been updated from March, as y'all can tell. One of the things that obviously were in the back of my mind when I did these updates were, one, the legislature recently passed a bill to supersede any sort of local ordinance. So obviously I was taking into mind that aspect of this discussion, which is right. My goal in this is not to have an ordinance set by City Council to dictate the amount of pay and any of that type of stuff, but rather that City Council leverage its power as a agent in a contracting contract negotiation in order to get concessions from South by Southwest in order for South by Southwest to use the facilities or get waiver of any of those facility usage. The second, so that's how I do it down to those two recommendations. The second thing is one of the biggest things that you will notice is that I also got rid of the recommendation for that talked about international artists, and I think I included that because international art, you get into a lot of visa issues, immigration issues if that happens, and obviously I don't want to interfere with the immigration issue. So that's the reason I didn't include it on there. And as someone who's myself just became a legal permanent resident earlier this year, I can tell you, please, no one needs to be interfering with immigration issues. If it's not your lawyer, you shouldn't be interfering with it. And then lastly, I know there has been a lot of discussion since March between board members on individual capacities and myself in capacity through musicians, members of various organizations and unions. And I still believe that this recommendation is important for us to pass. I think we heard all of the people who spoke during citizen communication about what this means to them and how they view this issue. And I've made it be known to various people that I don't personally buy the argument that this is necessarily a networking event, an event for them to showcase their talents, for them to get an opportunity to be discovered. I view this as an opportunity for a person to practice their profession and get paid an adequate wage as a result of that performance. So for those aforementioned reasons, I still do believe that it is important for us to move forward and for the city of Austin, and for us to recommend that the city of Austin use their leverage in order to get the pay in alignment with our city's values, missions, and goals. At this time, I don't know if anyone has any other questions. Well, I will say one of the things that I wanted, when I typed this up, I was noticing when I was reading this is line 19 and line 22, where it has the date of 2022. That should actually be 2023. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to change that. I'm going to make an amendment, and then I'm going to accept the amendment that those two dates change to 2023. Sorry, I forgot this last portion. The reason why I did, and I say this because I did have a few board members ask me why there wasn't any sort of indication as to what level of compensation or a number associated with it, just because I just don't think that it's appropriate for us or the city to be doing that. That's got to be a number that's decided upon between musicians and a union agent, a bargaining agent, and South by Southwest. That I'll leave that up to them, because there may be intangibles that no one has thought of as of yet that could be used as part of the negotiation process, or there could not be. But that's up to them to decide what that looks like, and for the city of council to then take that into consideration when evaluating any further usage of parks or park facilities. Any discussion on this? Questions? Feedback?
I think you did a good job refining your wording. I like it from where you were in March. I'm conflicted, though, since this is voluntary. People apply to perform. They want a chance at performing. Would we have that many people voluntarily applying to perform if they, seems like money hasn't been an issue, that the opportunity to perform and be on a stage is the issue. And so, that's one thing. But then the other thing is you've got this big for-profit company that, could be a little more generous, sharing in the goods. So, I think that we're kind of at a crossroads with South by, whereas its original mission was a stage to be seen, to showcase your talent. Present day, people need to make money. So I think it's almost like South by needs to kind of rewrite their business plan. I don't know. But then I go back to it is voluntary. If I'm not able to pay my bills and afford life, am I going to pursue that route?
Yeah, and I
don't know.
No, I definitely think that those are good questions and thoughts in regards to that. At least that first portion of what you just stated. At least in my mind, I'm not a musician, but this is at least what I think as someone who comes from a working class background, whose parents are working class as well. Not applying to South by Southwest may not be an option to some of these artists in regards to what other gigs are you going to get during the month of March, or particularly that specific week or weekend, if it's not them. I guess you could go to an unofficial showcase, but we did hear that there was someone who said that the unofficial showcase or the gala or event was offering them $0 in order to perform at it. So it's a catch-22 type of situation where it's like, what do you do during that time frame? And that's what goes in through my head when I think about this.
And I think about other areas of creativity. I'm an artist. I like to oil paint. the reason I don't do more of it is because I have to earn a living, and so I work. So I do my oil painting as my hobby on the side. I think there are many musicians that are driven to be musicians. They want to make that their living. And, so perhaps that's different, and it's not a good comparison. But, I've been to many art shows where I see starving artists trying to sell their paintings on the sidewalk, and that's the choice they make. I don't know.
Thank you.
So I guess what I would say is, like, in a capitalist economy, of course, that's the trade-off you're asking people to make. For me, and it's only my personal belief, many more people would be doing art for a living if we actually valued it in our society. I have a degree in theater. I was a stage manager professionally for 3 years, and I was poor, behind on my bills, could never make ends meet, went back to grad school to do something that I enjoy, but I don't love it the same way I loved what I do. So sure, you can make that trade-off, but I think it's also, this is a hard thing because philosophically you're now, you're talking about how society values something that's an intangible in many ways. We all listen to music, we all consume art. Do we think that the people who choose to pursue those lifestyles should not be paid the same as we pay people who are lawyers or, to use an example, doctors? I don't know. I think for me, I don't feel comfortable with that. I think that people make the trade-off of not pursuing art because we don't value it. And this is just another way that we choose not to value it by not holding people accountable. But it gets into capitalism, which I understand why that's not comfortable for some people. So
that's good. Chair.
Yes. Board Member Reed.
I think what this really deals with is that what Board Member Hugman was saying is that South by Southwest is a different kind of event than it was originally. My brother was one of the first people to play in South by Southwest in 1987, and I remember him doing everything he could to get a press kit together because he said, this is how you make it, and somebody might notice you at South by Southwest. That has changed completely because the whole industry has changed. I don't believe that A&R reps are getting sent from Los Angeles so that they can find the next greatest band in Austin for South by Southwest. I think there's a big opportunity for the film festival because it's getting a reputation like something like Cannes Film Festival or Sundance, and so people whose films actually get into the festival will get more recognition and might actually go further. But for music, I would like to see some kind of report or evaluation of how many people who actually play at South by Southwest get asked to do something more or get recognized. I think what it is they are playing a gig. And the gigs are what attract the people to come to Austin to hear, to participate in South by Southwest. Without the musicians, you wouldn't have the festival. That's just the way it goes. I would kind of equate it a little bit like college athletes before they were compensated, where they are out there putting it all on the line, trying to show you what they are with this slim chance that they might get recognized and drafted. And so I support the resolution, the recommendation.
Board Member Becker.
Yeah, I'd also like to call it. I was struck during public comment by one of the speakers who noted that it isn't only the month of South by Southwest; it's also the month after. That's a significant part of the year, and I have certainly heard the argument that South by Southwest, that if we are sort of going to treat South by Southwest this way, that we should treat other similar institutions similarly. But I do think it is worth noting, and I do appreciate that this resolution focuses on South by Southwest specifically, because it does, to Board Member Reed's point, it does have it has a relationship with the city now that's grown over the past several decades, and it's special and useful and needs some updating. So I appreciate that this recommendation starts to move things in that direction. Is one of the voices that moves things in that direction, hopefully.
Any other comment? Oh, sorry. Yes.
I'm curious if you have any context around why the City of Austin subsidizes South by Southwest as a for-profit organization. Why do we offer? Why do? What is the? Why are the fees waived?
The same reason we do that for ACL or any other large entity that generates tourism. I mean, I don't work for the city, but I think the thought process is that anything that generates that many people coming to the city of Austin is a net win. We're getting so much tourism revenue from people staying in hotels, there's so much happening that they think, okay, we have this relationship with South by, we'll cut a deal, right? It's leverage that South by does have. They bring, I mean, I don't have stats, but it's a lot of people, and we're getting hotel occupancy tax and other things from their presence here, would be my guess of why the city does it. Someone from the city would have to say specifically, but.
Do you know if the financial total of our leverage here is $23,000? Is it really just the waived fee on Auditorium Shores from the Parks Department?
That's the one contract that I was able to get a hold of.
That's the one that included a subsidy, or it's just the only one you were able to get?
So it's the one, it's the contract between PARD and, hold on. Yeah, the PARD event contract for South by Southwest from 2023. So it was for the waiver of fees associated with the use of Vic Mathias Shores.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say, because I'm sure it's going to come up at some point, right? Like there's the one thing in my discussion with other people about this was that the argument is made that, well, there is the community event, concert that happened Friday, Saturday, and Sunday during South by at Vic Mathias Shores. So that's, there's the quid pro, not quid pro, but the something for something.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that argument, and I understand that that is something that is provided free to the community, but I don't think that in my mind at least, supersedes the concern that I have for paying artists. Like I'm not willing to sacrifice artists and artist pay just to get a free concert, go to a free concert for one evening.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Board Member Taylor. Yes. You're on mute. We'll just give her a moment.
In the meantime, can I ask if South by Southwest uses any other parkland besides Auditorium Shores for the festival, or?
The only other ones that I was able to get find were the Craig Softball Complex, Brush Square Park, and Waterloo Park, except for if you see there, footnote number 8, that Brush Square Park was not rented by Southwest in 2023 due to construction, but it has been used in previous years. And if, huh?
That's the in Waterloo Park.
Yeah, in Waterloo Park, yeah. And then, and then my understanding was that for the Craig Softball Complexes, that was, if I remember correctly, that was used for volunteer center, like a volunteer hub. I don't remember.
I think it's good.
I guess we're waiting on Board Member Taylor to just hop back on.
I told her to log off and log back on, and so maybe she's doing that. I don't know. Are you coming back?
I'm curious how you came up with the wording artist pay and compensation. We heard that there was this trade-off between choosing pay versus compensation and wristband. Are you looking to require a change in both pay and compensation?
Which line are you looking at?
53.
Oh, okay. I don't think so. I'm looking at a different section just to confirm my thinking. Okay, yeah, I think I included it in there as a catch-all. Because again, I don't want to limit the city to pay or compensation, but rather include it as both as a whole, to have a holistic approach.
I appreciate that you left it open-ended enough that the city has a lot of power here to negotiate.
Board Member Taylor, we see your
My
initials.
apologies.
There you
My
go.
apologies.
Okay, there it goes.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm back. So my question was basically that I really, really like this recommendation and want to support it. My question is, why is it just South by Southwest? What about ACL? Are they paying their musicians a livable wage? I mean, a reasonable rate? Do we know that, or is that just something that we hadn't looked at yet?
I haven't looked at it. I know that we were working on. I think at the last contract concession committee, you requested some of those contracts between PARD and ACL and possibly APF.
Right.
So I was waiting to see kind of what that all looks like before doing anything on that front.
Okay, that was just my question, because I want to make sure that if we're going to do it, I don't want to just target South by Southwest. I want to make sure that across the board, anyone who's using the parks to make money like that, pays a fair wage to the performers. Thank you.
I would say I am comfortable with the recommendation being South by Southwest focused. I do think the sort of added question of whether it should be expanded to, I don't know that for the purposes of this conversation, I don't know that ACL is necessarily the best comparison point, since they're talking about sort of large artists that have all sorts of contract negotiation structures. But there are plenty of other local organizations that do have bands that play in Zilker and other parks. So we could certainly have a conversation, beyond.
And ACL does hire a lot of local artists, just so you know. They have a lot of local artists play on the smaller stages.
It's fair.
So.
Okay. All right. Any other further? All right. At this time, I call the question. The vote, the motion on the floor is to recommend that the City of Austin Council support fair pay for South by Southwest performing artists. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously.
Hey, Chair, I may have missed it. Who was the motion and the second on that
The
motion?
second was Board Member Merritt.
Okay, appreciate it.